Hi, this is Ken Okel. Let's talk about some ways that you can stop email overload at work. I know for a lot of people, they feel like they're being buried by their email and especially internal messages. So today, I'm going to talk about a relatively simple strategy that you can use, and hopefully it can reduce the number of messages you're getting internally throughout the day. Heads up, as we continue on with this presentation, you'll eventually have a chance to download a little resource guide that I've put together that highlights some of the key points. I think these are great for little reminders that you might need from time to time. First part of this email strategy is to define the pain. See if you can take a look, talk to others, and find out, are we spending way too much time dealing with email messages, some of which may not be that important? And as I mentioned before, we're talking about internal email, messages that are coming from your colleagues. Really try to define how bad things are. I don't need a number, but do you have the feeling that you could get a lot more done if there simply weren't as many messages in your inbox? That's the type of thing we're talking about. Does it seem like it might be costing money? It might be wasting time. Perhaps it is affecting work-life balance. Make sure you define the pain. When you're trying to get people to adapt to a new strategy, it helps if you have that pain defined. So for them, changing a few things is much easier to do rather than some unusual request that comes out of nowhere. Think about that. You also want to get everyone together and really start to define things like urgency. What makes a message urgent when it needs to be responded to right away? At the same time, you may want to also think about those messages where it's like, it can wait. These are updates, good to know, important information, but maybe something that does not require an emergency response. So start to think about those types of messages, kind of break them down into, okay, this would be urgent, this would be nice to know. Maybe even there's a third category. Those could be updates about cake in the break room next week. Lower stuff, still important to know, but not needing you to drop everything to respond to it in that moment. Let me introduce you to the grouping strategy. This is something I think works very well for those messages that are important but not urgent. Some supervisors may want to know what their employees are up to throughout the day, make sure things are getting done. I get it. In the past, the employee would send an email every time he or she accomplished something. Okay, that can add up though. That could be like 20 messages a day. If these things aren't urgent, and it's more about saying, hey, we did that thing that we had talked about doing. It's been done. Don't worry about it. Those types of messages, can you group those together? So instead of 20 messages, maybe you're sending 2. What can work well is to have a morning bulk message and an afternoon bulk message. So you start the day in the morning, you open that email up, you start to note in those things you've done. Let's say by noon, you send that message. So your supervisor will get that information, but it's not in all these multiple messages where they feel like they have to respond. Give those updates, group them together. Much easier for people to look at their inbox, go through those rather than have to go through, as I mentioned before, 20 little updates that aren't that urgent. I'm also a fan of creating some email codes. Again, you get everyone together and you agree on codes, usually a letter or a number, that is part of the subject line. So at the beginning of the subject line, you might put the letter U for urgent. So if someone's scrolling through their messages, ooh, I see a U. Let me open that message right away. There are some email programs that allow you to highlight things and state urgency. I kind of like it if someone has to put a letter into the subject line. It makes them think a little bit more about the message. You can also use numbers. Some will put in 24 into the subject line if a message is something that has to be acted or decided upon within 24 hours. You want to make it very easy for someone to look at their inbox and quickly see, hey, what should I be responding to? How many of us have been in that situation where an important message from us just got lost in all the messages in someone's inbox? So codes are something that can help. Get together, talk about them, and start using them. It's also good to evaluate your progress. Maybe after 90 days, you get people together and you say, okay, how is this working? We tried something new. Does it need to be adjusted? Maybe there are some people who are kind of rebels where they're like, I don't need to do this. And they're sending out a gazillion messages. Then you need to see, okay, will you embrace this program or do we just need to get rid of it? Because if you have one or two people who aren't following along, it's not going to work as well. The biggest thing is that people are starting to think, because if everybody is just sending messages constantly, everyone has to open those messages constantly. So if you can find a way to create a system that saves you some time, that improves your performance, why not try it? This is a simple system. I think it can work for a lot of you. And as I mentioned before, here's the guide. So it's just a refresher, help you remember some of the key points that we talked about today. You're able to download it through, I'm putting the link in right now. And if you're watching this later on YouTube or on my website, hey, how you doing? Nice to see you. I will also include that download link. This system is not rocket science, but I found it can help people be more mindful about what they're doing and save you some time. For more about me, my name's Ken Okel. I'm a professional speaker. I help leaders improve their performance on the job based on my experiences in TV news, hurricane relief, and professional ballet. Find out more about me at my website, just like my name. You want to email me, tvguy@kenokel.com. Why TV Guy? When I worked in TV news, often you'd be out and about in the public. People wouldn't know your name, so they'd just yell out something at you like, hey, TV Guy. And I welcome you as well to connect with me on LinkedIn. I hope you've enjoyed this presentation and these tips will be handy. Take care.